So you guys ended up meeting at what, like 8 years old?
Third grade, however old you are in third grade.
Yeah, third grade.
And it's so amazing that you guys have been best friends for so many years and able to accomplish hip hop history with your best friend, essentially, right? Like, you know, it's crazy. So like, what is like your first impressions of each other when you guys meet each other?
Well, I think I hosted what it is. I used to host people, like, you know, you would have your little Quaker school and like Milo's parents would whatever contact and be like, okay, well, why doesn't Milo come in and he'll spend a day? And so like that day I was his host. So like little 8-year-old Eric like hosted him. So it was like, hey, what's up? You know, and like we were just like hung out for the day. And like, you know, he just rolled with all the stuff, you know, with all the people that were there. Like we're still, you know, we have like 4 or 5 dudes that we still know. You know, one other was still back then. A couple others came a little bit later in school, but you know, like we did that, and then he came in 4th grade. So then he reappeared in September of 4th grade, and it was like, oh, so it was, you know, it was dope. That's, you know, I think
they knew to use Eon as the host because he would reel the new kids in. Like they knew that
was good. I had a good. I actually did that throughout my career, and everyone I would bring in, Kenny Weaver. You know,
no, we hit it off right away. Just this one day where he hosted me, I was like, that's where I want to go to school.
Wow. So an interesting thing is that basically, you guys went to school with John Schechter, right? Who was the co-founder of the Source magazine. And at one point, he's like 4 years older than you guys?
Yeah.
So you're in 8th grade, he's like in 12th grade, and he's going off to Harvard, right? And so then he becomes like, he starts sending you things to review for the Source magazine. So like you're barely like what, 13? I'm sorry. What?
Probably 17, 16.
Yeah, whatever, you know, but like you're not even out of high school and you're reviewing these albums already and writing up things. So what was that like for you at that time?
It was crazy because like the rest of the hip hop industry, like the Source was like the Bible, man. You would like read it over and over again. It started as just like this kind of zine or pamphlet. And like the one thing about golden era hip hop is it's still kind of like a mysterious genre. Like you still have to read the back of the album to learn about the group and stuff like that. So the Source was like, you would just absorb all the knowledge, all these little hip hop tidbits and shit. And you would just live for the little pictures of like Q-Tip in the studio with Mace from De La, and they're making Buddy and they're sampling samples for Buddy, and you're like, oh my God. So Eon and I definitely started as fans first, hardcore hip hop fans, you know. Then we went to the Beastie Boys Public Enemy show in '87, and that changed us to be like wanting to do it as artists. But yeah, sorry, I got off track a little.
Writing for the Source.
Right. So I would take the article to John Schechter's father's office. He was like a big time Philadelphia lawyer in the very early days of faxing. So we would fax the articles off to Scheck at Harvard, and that's how I would get it to him. And then, I was like living a dream, you know, even though like he would assign me maybe not the hottest records to review.
So what year is it that you're writing for them exactly?
This is 89, 90.
Okay, so like are they still the single sheet, or they're in the magazine phase already at that point?
Yeah, they're like in the magazine stage, but it's probably just like a 20-page magazine still.
Got you. Okay. And man, like that's just amazing, because I remember I heard you talk about like you would get albums in advance. So like you would be listening to it for like 8 months already, the new brand Nubian. Next thing you know, by the time people get to listen to it, you're already tired of the album because you have been listening to it forever already.
Yeah, it was the greatest thing ever. But then also maybe once the rest of the world caught up, you'd be like, oh man, I know about this song, but it was incredible having these albums early. I tell this one story about we're freshmen in college and we get the Black Sheep album early, the first Black Sheep album, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. And
Oh, that's right.
and we go to this college expo where they're performing. And at this time, they only had the first single out, but in the meantime, and something else. But we have had the whole album for months. So we're screaming in the audience, album cuts. Whatever one of the other songs is. And Drez is looking at Mr. Long like, yo, like, how do these kids like know our album? We're lucky we didn't get beat up on some bootlegging shit.
Wow.
DJ Days.
So like, what age do you start writing rhymes? Like, do you decide like, hey, I really want to be a rapper?
Well, like Miles said, we went to in April of '87. We went to the Murphy's Law, Public Enemy, Beastie Boys show, and we walked in, and it was like My Uzi Weighs a Ton, and it's like I can't say the visceral reaction to like the bass and like walking in and just like it was just this whole thing, like your whole body was like absorbing it, and then you just looked and it was like Chuck D and Flav and them, and they had like the suspenders like drooping down, I'll never forget, and like Professor Griff and them, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? It was like like My Uzi Weighs a Ton, I remember, and then they played like Public Enemy #1. And like the noises and everything, like, were like crazy, and like the samples, and it was just like, oh my God. So like the next day and then we saw the Beastie Boys, obviously, it was Murphy's Law, PE, and then the Beastie Boys. And then I think it was like the next day. So that was April like 17th or something. And then we went to like Sound and Market or something, and like we both bought, like, I don't think my like DJing per se, but we bought, like, I bought like that single,
Public Enemy
#1, and we had the instrumental. We were like, and then what it was is of May, within 1 month we had our talent show at Friend Select, and we were freshmen, and in May of '87. So within 30 days of being at the Spectrum, we were on stage kicking whack shit, like whatever the hell we were. And that's the cover of, which one is that? Did we use that for? Super Sound? That's like one of the pictures that we used, literally from that. So we were like 30 days after we saw this, we had written something, and I wrote something about like the Mets and something, and we performed at the show over Public Enemy #1, and that's what it was. It was like an immediate like effect. Like we just, you're 16, and it was like this thing. It was just like, finding your older brother's like electric guitar and like drums, and like just going off. It was like that, because no one had ever seen anything like that. We had never seen any music or anything like that. And we were young. We were like 14 or whatever. So 15. So we were having these experiences,
So at that time, are you going by MC Magnum?
No, the first one was E-Man, which was a comic book. And in the shirt, in that picture, I have a Mets hat on. And then I have a orange shirt. It says E-Man that I bought at Fat Jack's Comic Crypt and the comic book store. And so I was E-Man for like that performance. And then I think over the summer, we were just like into it. And then that's where I think it was MC Magnum. Or actually I was General E, for like 5 minutes, and then MC Magnum, so then MC Magnum, which I went into, I think at some point through high school into college, because I think people knew me as Magnum right when I went in to college.
And Milo, you were going by Jace or something like that along those lines at first. Is that right? I read in an interview that you had said like based off of your middle name, right, Jason?
I think that might have been my graffiti tag, but I think I was always Mighty My, actually, man. Well, actually, DJ My.
Right,
I have
DJ
a
Ma.
hat. I have a hat still. When you get the letters, ironed onto the hat, the wool hat at DJ My. So maybe I was DJ My for a second. Actually, in those same shows Eon's talking about when we performed at the talent shows, there's a banner and the picture says DJ My. But
That's another cover. That's another cover that we did. So yeah, those are 2 talent shows that we did.
So you eventually find out that you were not destined to be an MC, right, Milo?
very quickly. Very quickly.
And what exactly like stood out to you that you weren't supposed to be?
Well, our very first assignment, even before me and he did those talent shows, we did a talent show before that in 9th grade or something where I tried to rhyme also. And I couldn't. Well, this is even earlier. I think this is middle school. And everyone wrote their rhymes. And then my rhymes were like Curtis Blow's rhymes on the back of his album. I like wrote them down and pretended it was bass. I knew very early that hands-on experience was going to be my only verse ever on vinyl.
Got you. So then you guys would go to shows at the Spectrum in Philly, right? And you saw Jam Master Jay performing, and it really captivated you and inspired you to be a DJ.
Yeah, I mean, we went to those shows and like I would totally admire Jam Master Jay because he was known for never making mistakes. And I remember Chuck D reading an interview with him, and he said, we picked Terminator X because we wanted the closest thing to Jam Master Jay. And Terminator X would never make mistakes live. And so that's why we rolled with Terminator X. So and Jam Master Jay had the greatest bass rub. And in those shows in the Spectrum, which is what really shaped me and E, that was a huge thing of those shows. So the 808 is one thing you would feel in your chest, but the second thing you would feel in your chest are the bass scratches, the DJ's cutting up the actual kick drum. And Jam Master Jay's was known for being just so solid. But anyone who was at those shows knows that Jazzy Jeff would steal the whole show.
Right.
He would be the number one superstar in the arena. Well, I guess like LL Cool J and stuff, but like when it was time for Jeff to do his routine, that was like the highlight of the whole night, maybe because we were in Philadelphia, but yeah, those early Spectrum shows were just so like we would talk about them for weeks after. Remember, we would go to school the next day, we would still be like high from it.
Yeah.
And you guys both worked at Foot Locker?
Yes. For one summer.
Yeah.
Right. Summer of 88, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Milo, you saved up for the techniques,
right.
the turntables.
Right.
And then I remember reading that you said you would DJ at the DMC and when later on, and it was your chance to impress Red Alert.
Yeah.
Right.
Red Alert's like the godfather of the golden era, so there were so many records he played that were just so, when you would buy them, you would just like associate that record with Red Alert because you heard it on his show and it was, just a 12-inch that would never have an album, but his taste in hip hop was so perfect. Even when he would play album cuts from like the Jungle Brothers or Tribe, he would always pick like the choice album cut to play. So of course, I wasn't good enough to compete in those DMCs, but I would get hired to DJ in between the DJs or in the beginning and at the end, and he would host them. So I would make sure that I was breaking out the obscurity for him, and he would come up to me and go like, damn, I can't believe you're playing this. And I'd say, I learned it from you, man. So those were hip hop like highlights for me when I could kind of show my knowledge of hip hop, Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily have like the greatest skills that were going to be Hall of Fame skills, but I could say, hey, I have some good taste and I know my shit.
And what's amazing about that is that was kind of your way of paying homage too to those that came before you, because you're paying respect to Red Alert. You know, like I learned this from you, and being able to tell him that.
Well, the High and Mighty records are all about paying homage. I mean, you know, from the meaning on, when we did the Still Number One to Me with all those obscure groups, but like we've always just been true fans that happen to make hip hop, you know?
Mm-hmm.